go ahead, Sophie, and tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind. And if I'm right, you studied politics and sociology at Keele up until about 2000, was that right?
I did, and that's probably the most interesting thing about any level of sort of awkward introduction where you're required to read your CV, which I don't like doing. But yeah, I studied sociology and politics, graduated in 2000 and went on to do a master's in politics in Manchester. And to cut a very long story short, I'm now a CEO of a private equity-backed health club chain. More interestingly, I live on the south coast. I work in Manchester. I like paddleboarding, I love gin, going to Ibiza, all of that other interesting stuff. But that's the interesting bit. The more boring bit is that I've been an executive director of a business since 2012, when I was appointed to the international health club chain Fitness First. But this is my first CEO outing, so that's where I am at the moment.
As we were just saying before we switched the recording on, a baptism of fire for you at the moment.
It is, but a gift in lots of ways, because we're sort of stretching and learning sort of the extent of our leadership skills, if you like, at the moment.
Yeah. So when you started thinking about going to university all those years ago, well, not that many years ago, let's be honest, so that sounded really rude. What was it that drew you to Keele, and what was it that drew you to the subjects that you ended up studying? Obviously, you'd done the foundation year, so perhaps you weren't quite sure before you started, or?
Well, please don't apologise. It is a long time ago. It's 20 years ago, so don't apologise. There was lots of things about Keele, and if I'm brutally honest, it was my first time away from home, and the way I chose my university selection was actually I drew a 250-mile compass radius around my hometown of Middlesbrough and chose everything outside, much to my parents' irritation. However, the one thing that I loved about Keele, and I visited lots of them, was it's actually really difficult to articulate, Rebecca, so I'm so sorry. It's a tough question to answer, but there was just something. There's just something about it. It just felt safe, but not safe in a boring way. Safe in a way where I just thought, ooh, my shoulders dropped a little bit, and okay, I like the feel of the sociology department in particular, and I like the feel of the campus, but I feel like I can grow. I think that's the best way to say it, but I can't nail it down. And so that's why it was shortlisted into my final two.
You'd studied sociology before you came to study it with us at Keele?
Did A-level sociology, but politics wasn't available at my college, so that was one of the reasons that I chose a foundation year, because that was a slightly new piece for me. I knew that I would love it, but it was a great gift at that time to be able to test it out, if you like.
And what happened when you arrived? How was it for you on your foundation year? Was it a shock, or was it massively brilliant, or what?
I think everybody's a little bit shocked when they first arrive, because nobody really knows what to expect from university life. And it did, I'm not gonna lie, it took me a little while to get into the swing of things, but that first year, once I got into the swing of things, was just a joy, because you just, and this is the joyful thing about university anyway, you just learn yourself. You learn yourself, like who you are, I think, and that's a really important thing. It's a really important gift that Keele gave me, actually, and that environment of learning.
I think that's really important. We often forget that, don't we, in the rush to sort of careers, and all of those things around employability are super important, and actually academic study is super important, but often we forget how big a transition it is for young people, that it is exactly as you say very eloquently about who you are going to become as an adult, and sort of trying things out. Yeah. So what did you become?
I became very strong and tenacious, and I think
I remember that very well.
But I think over time, that sort of strength and tenacity has grown into tenacity in a somewhat different way. It's slightly less proud and know-it-all and wanting to know it all, and somewhat more open to knowing that I'm not really the finished article, if that's okay. And that actually is okay. And that was a big part of my learning since Keele, without a shadow of a doubt. But yeah.
I've heard you talk very powerfully to some of our alumni before about humility. And I think that was something to do with you'd achieved this pinnacle of your degree, and then you found that once you graduated, it was harder than you imagined it would be. Is that something you'd be willing to reflect upon again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the question you'd asked me at that particular time was, what advice would you give yourself, your sort of 19-year-old self, as you came out of university? And I sort of built it into this idea of just having slightly less pride and a little bit more humility. And I've sort of taken that lesson all the way through my career to date, really. But I think there is definitely something about that initial point when you come away from university and you have achieved, exactly what you've been focused on for a number of years, and proportionately a very long period of your life. So it's a massive achievement, right? And then you come out of university, and for me, certainly, I had to accept a role which felt somewhat, I thought I had all the answers. I've come out of university, I've got a bloody degree in sociology and politics, and surely I'm going to walk into Parliament. But, I started working in the fitness industry because that I needed to make some money, and you feel that deflation, actually. I'm so proud of this, and I have to deal with that deflation and being able to go and do something that I didn't really believe that I was meant to do. But I think I would point this out to my 19-year-old self and just reflect and say, well, actually, leaving university with a degree is not about walking straight in. It's not about being finished. It's not about the first steps that you take. It's about how many steps there are yet to go, if that makes sense. And undoubtedly, walking out of Keele with my degree and Manchester with my master's degree just meant that the steps of my journey were far longer and far more varied as a result. But you've got to accept that first one with a little less pride and much more humility, so that you're open to accepting that the journey is long, and it's brilliant so far.
And you're a really good example of that journey, aren't you? Because there's two things about what you've just said. I mean, first of all, I think that sense of humility and awareness of, I guess, empathy as well for what other people around you are doing to work and earn a living is part of it. It isn't just about being a graduate, it's about solving problems across different kind of levels of society, and that's a very sociological worldview, which I'm quite proud that I'm sure we didn't contribute all of that, but gave you the space to think about that little. And I guess the other part is your own story is one of walking through the journey very successfully, and I'm sure it hasn't been easy all the time, but could you talk us through a little bit about that journey and what factors you think helped you on that long, challenging journey to becoming a CEO, and perhaps reflect a bit for me on your experiences at Keele, or the subjects, or just the friends, or whatever that you found from us.
Wow, that's a big question.
It is. Right.
I think it does go without saying, regardless of, the line is not necessarily straight between a Keele degree in sociology and politics and CEO of a private equity big back business in the leisure sector. For me, it goes without saying that actually this wouldn't have happened without this. There's just no question in my mind. But understanding how the two link together is nuanced, and actually there's a whole host of factors that contribute to the career success that I continue to enjoy, and I'm very blessed for. I think part of it talks to the subject matter that I studied, but also the sort of culture that I experienced of Keele. And it is sociology's great power as a subject to encourage and develop critical thinking about the world around you, but also actually turning that power for critical thought back on yourself. And I think I actually have, oh crikey, I haven't thought about it for quite a while, but there was a pivotal moment for me at Keele, and I can remember it very specifically, in my bedroom of Horwood Block Z20. I'm not even sure if it's still there. The Z Sheds, reading a text by Anthony Giddens on reflexivity, the ability to turn something back, but in modernity, doing that with yourself and being able to step back and reflect on your own behavior and applying critical thought to that. It was actually learning that skill, the skill of critical thought and then critical thought of the self, that really created what has been the exceptional journey of personal growth, where I am now, and I will continue to grow, but it's only that level of critical thinking and self-awareness that will get you there. And again, that talks back to being a little bit less proud and a little bit more humble.
I'm super impressed that you remember not only the book but the concept. That's fantastic. We've scored there. Hit home. That's really interesting, Sophie. I think that notion of reflexivity is crucial, isn't it? And that in a way that's what sociology is really good at. I mean, the laboratory is ourselves and the structures and institutions that we create. So it has the potential, as many humanities and social sciences subjects do, to kind of get that sense of reflection on one's journey as a person and as a citizen and not just as an employee. So I think that's a really powerful thing to experience, and that's what we hope for people to some degree. I mean, let's be honest, what was the most challenging thing for you at Keele?
I think probably one of the most challenging things was that,
I'd say me.
You were the favourite. I felt like I had to work harder than a lot of other students to get the sort of results that I needed, and that was a challenge, but one that I wasn't afraid of. But I'm not going to lie, I did have to work hard. I came out with a 2-1, and I was exceptionally proud of my dissertations, and it was the exam-based work that was a challenge for me. I put an awful lot of personal pressure on myself, and the sort of binary nature of pass or fail on one day was always a great personal pressure, and one under which I couldn't really perform. So that was quite a challenge.
You took one of my courses, and we worked quite a lot together on themes around the sociology of the body, and that was later on my list. But since we're there now, given that you work in a body-focused industry, I'm interested obviously, you brought that in with you, if I recall, because you were quite, interested in fitness and sport and so on when you were a student. Is that right? So it wasn't that but I guess we gave quite a critical lens to that on the course. And I've often wondered when we've bumped into each other before, what you make of that kind of critical thinking about the industry that you're in, that my subject kind of opens up a bit.
There's a straight line from that to that, from sociology and the thoughts about the body, and then the fitness industry. There is a straight line, but then there's also a more wobbly line, which is always the one that I tend to take, unfortunately. And we enjoyed loads of topics together. Favourites were gender and society, sociology of the consumer and consumerism. That was exceptional. And then, of course, the body. And it would appear there's a straight line, and if I remember rightly, my dissertation was around about the sort of modern control of the body, and actually how damaging that can be in the wrong environment. I sort of hopped into a fitness career while I was at Keele in order to make some money, and then just sort of continued in that particular industry. However, I think it's actually the learning that I took from Keele more around about just sort of learning and exploring personal boundaries and, what are the real edges of my capability here? And it's actually that links to my great love of the fitness industry, because, what better job can you do than to help somebody be better than they expected today? And I think that's not actually just fitness, Rebecca. That's we could probably apply that to social care or empowering women, or any levels of empowerment. It just so happens that fitness is it at the moment, and has been for a long time.
Is there a sort of a role for graduate thinking in the fitness industry, and is it in the management area? Is it about learning the ropes? And I suppose I'm asking in another way, could somebody do what you did?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. 100%. Of course they can. It just takes a little bit of determination and a knowledge of yourself, I think, and being a little bit fearless. And I think one of the questions that you asked in there is, what do I think is, I guess the meaning of a graduate, or what is a graduate today? And I think for me, when I kind of reflect on that, they're the challenges. An awful lot has to change within our society and our social structures to make them sustainable, and they're the challenges. I'm a firm believer, really, that you can only be the change. You can't tell the change, and you can't heckle the change. You can only be it, and in turn change it. But they are the challenges. They are, for me, in sort of organisations like my own, or other private equity owned organisations. They're almost sort of like the vessels. You just know that you can fill them up and grow them, and they will do something great for your business. That's sort of the way I think about it. When it comes to what could people do in my particular sector, it's not really as easy to sort of slot people into segments, because sectors like mine, leisure and hospitality, more broadly, they just need great thinkers. These are sectors that are going through a great deal of change and will continue to be challenged. And we need great thinkers, great challengers, great listeners that really understand customers and drivers and behaviour, and are empathetic and understanding of that behaviour. And those skills are exactly what universities train people to do, in my view.
Perhaps especially in the humanities and social sciences.
Exactly. Which would be my only experience, so how could I possibly comment?
It's not to say that scientists and medics don't do those things, of course they do, but I suppose we focus on them in quite a deep, critical way. What kinds of things would you say graduates should and could be doing to add to that sense of, commitment and capacity to be employed once they graduate from university? What would be your recommendation now as an employer rather than as an alumna?
It's a really tricky one for me to nail down, because I would sort of look at it from both angles of, how should you go into it as a graduate, but equally I look at it in terms of how do I appreciate graduates when I meet them, if they want to come and work in my business, or indeed any of the ones in the sort of set of businesses that are owned by the same owner as mine. And I guess there is a desire as an employer to meet people who are open and are willing to grow. And I think that's probably the one quality that I look for when I meet people. Are you going to come on my journey? Because I have some of the answers, but I haven't got all of them, and I'm looking for people to help me answer them. I don't want people to have all of the answers. We're going to find them together, but people that are open, willing to grow, willing to challenge and speak up, and think a little bit differently, because we need more thinkers. And then there is, if we're going to be really specific about it, there is one skill that I find lacking generally, and it is a great skill that I learned through social sciences, actually, but it sounds really basic, but it's not. It's just the skill to articulate through the written word or the spoken word. Who knew? But it's pointless having great ideas unless you can conjure them into reality for somebody else. You put things in people's brains. You need to be able to write them down well, in a compelling way, in a structured way, and you need to be able to speak in a concise, articulate way to conjure realities for other people. Unbelievably underestimated, but exceptionally valuable.
That's really fascinating. So leadership and change as storytelling, would you say?
One of the greatest skills of leadership is an ability to tell stories in an authentic way. And again, that's about humility and honesty, but it's about being able to conjure somebody else's reality. Yeah.
We often feel in universities that in our subjects we struggle to be heard a little bit in the face of medical disciplines or science disciplines, which just frankly have a lot more clout with a lot of people. And I'm just interested from your perspective now, as a senior executive, And looking back on it, have you got some thoughts on that?
I do, and of course, I feel the same sentiment that you do. The skills that you grow through a social sciences degree can feel less tangible, less easy to talk to and articulate and say, I learned that thing that's really useful over here. And so I recognise that challenge. However, if I put it into sort of very accessible corporate business speak, you talk about the difference between a hard skill and a soft skill, and it's the soft skills all the way, all day, because they're the ones that you hone at a young age that create so much more potential, exponential potential, if you like, because they're the ones that you can take and grow yourself. And you can teach hard skills at any point of your life. So when I, as an employer, if I bring it back to business, when I, as an employer, I'm looking for hard skill and soft skill, it's the soft skills and the critical thinking skills and the ability to articulate and think well. They're the ones that are non-negotiable for me.
It's interesting, the sort of 10, was it the last year or the year before, there was a list of sort of 10 global needs for the new kind of we're in a completely different world now, but the kind of artificial intelligence driven change that we're all going to face. All of the top 10 virtually were sort of soft skills in the mold that you described. So I think we are going to have to rethink and revalue them. When you moved into the corporate end of the fitness world, did you start in HR or marketing, or it was HR, I think, was it? Or am I dreaming that bit?
No, it was general management, and it was there that I sort of learned the commercial ropes of a business, and then took a secondment to marketing on a wing and a prayer, but actually only got that break because of my ability to write stuff down, a very compelling business case with very good research methodology. And so it then came through the marketing line, marketing, central operations, strategy, and then leadership and strategy, which is what a CEO does.
Yeah. That's fantastic, and that's a great pathway, I guess, for our students to think about. I won't take up too much of your time, Sophie, but I've just got two kind of curveball questions for you, and feel free not to answer them if you don't want to. But I know I've read some of the articles that you did in the press around when you became CEO of your latest company, and you say something interesting about gender in one of them, that you almost don't want to be thought of as a female CEO, you just want to be thought of as a CEO. And I'm interested in that you studied gender and society with us, and I'm really interested. It's so rare to see women in top leadership positions. So I just tell me what you think about that.
It is rare, and it's a thing and it's not a thing, and it's something that I struggle to answer well, but we'll give it a shot. I think that one way I answer it is, well, I don't mind, because I've always got the bathrooms to myself and I can lay out all of my eyeliners, and it's just fine. But it's clearly a thing. I am the only female CEO in my sector and the youngest by quite a stretch. And actually, when I look to the European sector, it's exactly the same. So it's clearly a thing. For me, however, it's not a thing. When I sit in a boardroom, I'm not looking down. I just see a bunch of people. They all happen to be guys, but I'm at the table. So I don't really sort of look back on myself. The other thing that I find strange and frustrating about being asked the question is it comes with an implicit, not always, but this question of gender quotas. And I have to write my gender pay gap report like any other CEO, and it's 50-50 actually, but I find it exceptionally frustrating to ever imagine that part of the conversation around my narrative would be anything to do with a quota. I absolutely got my job because I'm the best person for the job. Being a woman was absolutely nothing to do with it. And do I hang the phone up straight away when I get a call from a London non-exec headhunter who tells me that they're looking for non-executive directors to create more diversity on a board? It goes straight down, 100%.
I can't imagine anything more irritating.
100% right. And so to be part of the dialogue, I actually find a little bit deflating, because I'm already here, and I find questions about or suggestions about quotas quite challenging. Now, when I think about it from a business perspective, and the level of diversity in a business's boardroom, I genuinely think it asks the wrong question, because if there is a diversity challenge in a workplace, I genuinely think it's a challenge of the culture of the organisation, rather than do women want to do that job or not. I just think it addresses the wrong question.
Yeah.
But is it a thing? Yes. Am I proud to be a girl boss? Yes. Do I find it a challenge sometimes? Yes. But it is more a challenge of acknowledging the awkwardness of others. And awkwardness is quite a strong word, so let's dial that down a little bit. But when you walk into a boardroom, as I did many a time, particularly in my fitness first days, and they're not expecting to see a girl, and they don't know how to handle her. Do I shake her hand? Do I kiss her once? Oh no, she might report me to Me Too. Do I just give her a hug? Do I ruffle her hair? Seeing that awkwardness is actually quite difficult to deal with. Participating is not difficult to deal with.
That's a very thoughtful answer, I think, and I can see it's good to be challenging boundaries, but it's also really important for equality not to have those challenges defined by one's gender, and have it done because of ability and capacity and identity. Having said that, being challenging right back at you, lots of women struggle to achieve high levels of leadership and management, and face what they perceive as barriers to doing that. So I guess you noted the culture of the workplace there, but and if you've got a 50-50 gender gap, that's amazing. Pay gap, that's brilliant. Or 50-50 gender pay, if you've got equal pay, I guess is what you're saying. Then you must have been able to tackle some of those barriers somehow in your business.
We seem to have done, but I've got to be honest, not consciously. My leadership team, I have a team of 10. There are 4 girls, including me, so almost half. But it has migrated there completely unconsciously. It wasn't an attempt in any way. And I don't deny that there may be barriers, and I'm sure I have faced barriers myself. I probably just didn't spend enough time thinking about them, or getting too hung up on them. I was very much focused on just doing a really, really good job. I think there is one point that I would make, in that you referenced that many people face barriers to sort of reach the levels of leadership of sort of director level or CEO. And I must be honest, I didn't want to do it. I actually remember having a conversation with the managing director of a business that I used to be a director of, and the first time he floated the idea of being a director, I can remember clear as day, I said to him, but you would, if I did accept a position on the board, or if that kind of director position was available, you would lose a really good doer. Who actually says that, right? Who says that? Bringing it back to one of my earlier points around about sort of critical thinking and knowing yourself and being able to sort of question your own behaviour a little bit. I mean, my God, I would question that behaviour, right? I mean, who does that? Quite a lot of the barriers that I faced were my own, entirely self-constructed, and it's only the ability to sort of think critically and reflectively that I learned at Keele, and I've since practiced, that have enabled me to go, well, why do you not think you can do that? And boiling it down to actually the only thing was fear. I might fail. Okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, I might fail. Really? Okay, let's give that a smash. Really, that was the only barrier I faced. Really, deep down, really.
I hope Keele contributed a bit to that, but clearly, Sophie, quite a lot of that is just you and your kind of strength and the ability to develop capacity in yourself that you brought to us. And I think that's why we're really grateful that you're willing to have this conversation with us. Just a final one. Obviously, we're in a bit of a global existential crisis right now, all of us, and it's hard and painful, and it's difficult for all of our sectors of work and for individuals who are suffering and the like. And I guess one thing that sociology and politics really ought to do, if they do anything, is to do those big thinking kind of questions about, what could it be like? And I'm really interested to hear your view on that, on, if you must have thought about it if you've got time, as the rest of us have over the last few weeks. What could society look like, post pandemic? And we're thinking about it a lot, obviously, as social science researchers, but I'm really interested in in your view as a sort of business leader on that.
Oh, it's crikey. I've thought about this quite a bit over the last 7 or 8 weeks, and the reflections that I have tend to change week on week
Me too.
As the situation unfolds. I think there will be, I would hope, put it this way, I would hope that a great deal of social change comes in the wake of such a crisis that is existential for many businesses at this particular moment in time. I would hope that we learn to consume less rapaciously, for example. I would hope that we learn to consume a little bit more mindfully. I would hope that we pay a little bit more respect to our bodies. And I think that is something that my sector will benefit from greatly. And I would hope that we start to take a little bit more time over everything, period. And some of that has been forced on us. The first time that I went to a supermarket and had to learn to navigate the right direction of travel, and establish that if I didn't get everything right in the fruit and veg aisle, I was going to have to go all the way down to the wine, which always ends up in disaster, and then come all the way back. So I'm going to choose the right bananas, and I'm going to look at where they're sourced, and I'm going to make a more conscious decision about it.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm enjoying the experience of seeing other people, so I'm going to take my time over it. So I think there's all of those sort of little nuances of gratitude, of time and mindfulness that I think will generate an awful lot of change, actually. I can't be specific about what those changes I think will happen are, but I would hope that it's a catalyst for that kind of change, undoubtedly.
Yeah, that's a really good note to end on, Sophie. Thank you so much for doing this, and I'm sure our current and future students will be really grateful to hear your views on the world and on your career. So it's really very much appreciated. Thank you.
No, you're absolutely welcome.